Welcome, Tom, and thank you so much for chatting to Future Crunch today. Tom is the IT Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and it's amazing to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with a really basic question. We're wondering what you wanted to be when you grew up.
So I grew up in a very small town in Sweden, and I would never in a million years have imagined that I would be working at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in the United States, no less. So when I grew up, I wanted to be a journalist in Sweden. That was kind of my dream. Dreams change.
What made you divert from that to become IT chief at the Jet Propulsion Lab?
When I finished high school in Sweden, friends said, you should come to the US and swim. I was a swimmer. And I thought, okay, I'll give that a try. And long story short, I did get invited to swim for a school here in California and in Los Angeles. And one winter turned to two turned to three, and three turned to forever. So I've been here many years now, but certainly never what I dreamt of when I grew up, and it got even better.
Can you tell us a little bit about NASA's JPL and your work?
Sure. So my title is Chief Technology and Innovation Officer for IT at JPL. And JPL, so as that, sometimes I used to be a CTO, and CTO normally stands for Chief Technology Officer. I like to think of it as Chief Toy Officer, because today's toy is tomorrow's tool, but you don't really know which toy will become a tool until you play with it. So bringing some playfulness into how we explore space and help humanity search for Earth 2.0, redirect an asteroid, send humans to Mars. And those are just some of the things we're working on right now, including exploring icy planets to see if there's life there. The exploration, the early prototyping, rapid iteration, agile, will lead to lasting successes. And there are, of course, many rapid failures in there. But if they're small and they're fast, and why not make them fun? We can lead to success. So that's kind of how I look at the world.
And how about the future? I guess NASA and JPL must be an extremely future-focused organization, really. So what do you think are the biggest challenges that we're facing over the next decade, and how are you overcoming them as an organization?
So I think the challenges is one of opportunities. They're one and the same. So part of what we are doing, of course, we're trying to further humanity, further mankind, about being able to find Earth-like planet somewhere. And we found several. We don't know how Earth-like they are yet. We're looking about finding life out there. We're looking about being able to redirect an asteroid, being able to land humans on Mars. All of those things, there really is no immediate commercial value in it. So we need the brightest and the best people we can find to be on these massive transformative purposes. But those people are also being courted by Facebook, by Google, by Microsoft, by all of the big companies, and now, of course, lots of startups. So the challenge is to really attract and retain the talent that it takes to make this happen. And part of the solution is to partner with everybody who is interested in this. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge. There's also the opportunity in that just about nobody does what we do, looking for these things that NASA looks for. And NASA and JPL have been voted best places to work for many years going. So that's kind of our opportunity. You get to do something you can't do anywhere else. So I think that the challenge is competition for talent. The opportunity is extraordinary, intergalactic.
And why do you think the average person should care about space?
Well, not to be morbid, but if a really big asteroid came and hit us one day, that would be a really bad day for not just us, but for everybody. So somebody has to care about it. Somebody has to figure out how to redirect an asteroid. If we one day needed to export humanity, we would need to have a place to go. Somebody has to try to search for Earth 2.0. If to be able to mine an asteroid, to be able to make use. Human nature is exploratory. We always want to expand. So why should people care about space? Because it affects all of us. It is all of our future. It's the future of humanity that we're looking at.
Do you think that the idea of space travel and space exploration is changing what it means to be human?
I do. And it's a very pertinent question. When you talk to astronauts, and I've talked to several who've actually been looking back on Earth from space, and I have not, I wish I had, but what you hear is they get a much bigger perspective. They look back at Earth and they say, why do we have wars? It's such a fragile little place. It's about humanity. So they get a very different perspective looking back at Earth as a unified thing, not as a whole bunch of different countries perhaps fighting with each other. That's one. The other one, space travel, is, again, it's an explorer who's exploring for all of humanity. So I think science and engineering and space is a great ambassador. It's an ambassador for collaboration across all of humanity. Sounds perhaps trite and geeky, but then I'm a proud geek, so it's okay.
Me too. Aren't we all at heart?
Yeah.
Some people might not know that. So space exploration and travel are, of course, absolutely amazing. But some people might not know that NASA and JPL are not just focused on space, but on the planet that we live on as well. So what sort of work that you do concerning Earth, and why do you do it?
Okay. So we call that Earth science. And Earth science really means, at least from JPL's perspective, we send out spacecraft or satellites that orbit the Earth. And as they orbit the Earth, they look back at Earth using different types of instruments. For instance, they look at carbon. Is it too much carbon coming out that could lead to global climate change, perhaps? They look at water. Where is the water table? Is it changing? Is it rising? Is it shrinking? So we have satellites in space that are looking back, able to predict droughts, able to predict floods. Now we have two new ones called NISAR and SWAT. They are always in collaboration with other countries that will be able to look back at the water table on Earth, whether it's in rivers, whether it's in lakes, whether it's in ice, or even down to reservoirs, and circle it every 2 to 3 weeks. So now we can map all of the Earth's water, which means that you will be able to farm much better. You'll be able to prepare for unusual, disastrous events. Even things like malaria, because the mosquitoes need water. So all kinds of things. And look at earthquakes, tsunamis, all of those things are Earth science in nature. So when you look at the Earth from space, you get a very different perspective. Again, it's about perspective. And as you look at it over several years, you get data that you can actually use. We're not into making policy. We're into looking at data and presenting the data to anybody who cares. And luckily, a lot of people care.
With the kinds of advanced technology that you use, digital disruption probably has a massive impact on NASA and JPL. Can you tell us a bit about how it affects your work and what it means for NASA and other big organizations?
Certainly. So I spend my time looking at disruptors, and then I prototype them. Not just I, but people like me. So what we're looking for, if something is likely to disrupt us, then we prototype it. Prototype it means, how will it affect us? So we look at something called the next IT decade. The next IT decade is the next 3 years. Because if you look at humans, there is really a human decade every 3 years in IT. It moves so fast. So a disruptor is not a bad thing. The word disrupt tends to mean bad. A disruptor is only a bad thing if you didn't see it coming. So by being able to look at disruptors, we're able to prototype them, predict them, and by the time they actually disrupt us, we're already there. What are some of the disruptors? When the first iPhone came, was the first smartphone, that was a disruptor. And the disruption was not the phone, it was the apps. all of a sudden you'd be able to use your smartphone and have access to just about everything through applications, through apps. Another disruptor was the tablets when they came. Cloud computing might be one of the biggest computer disruptors of all. We saw all of these coming, and we decided these could disrupt us, so let's test them. 8 years ago, we started playing with cloud computing. At the time, it was a toy. It was something where you backed up your music, so you didn't lose it. Certainly could have nothing to do with an enterprise, or could it? So we decided to prototype it and test it. And now, just about everything we do is in cloud computing, because we don't have to own the servers, we don't have to have the data centers. We can have infinite compute capacity, storage, computing, and we have done things at a fraction of the cost that we could do before, like reprocess carbon dioxide data, all of it that's been collected. We're talking hundreds of terabytes of data. And you can we reprocess that for 1/10 of the cost, 1/10 of the time that it would have taken the old way. So the disruptors are very, very powerful, and they're a good thing if you see them coming. Some of the new ones coming are augmented reality and virtual reality. They are, we are already using that. You can actually explore Mars using your, in the case, HoloLens. We used a lot of Google Glass to do prototypes early on. Another disruptor is self-driving cars. So automation. We have self-driving cars. Problem is we only have a couple of them, and they're on Mars, but they drive themselves. So can we take advantage of the huge disruption that's coming from the self-driving cars community in space? And we think we can. Another disruptor is robotics. And we have robots that swim, that fly, that hop, and of course, that fly into space. The miniaturization that's happening with all the technology means that we can impact that and partner with industry. Other disruptors are, of course, wearing my smartwatch. The smartwatches, smart shirts, smart earrings, smart rings, everything smart means that it'll disrupt where everything ties into your smartphone and then to your body. You wear sensors on your body, it reports to the smartphone, talks to the doctor or your tennis coach, and the analytics that goes into that is just tremendous. So it's kind of the quantified self that is driving the next level of artificial intelligence, which is the other disruptor that we're now looking at. Whether you call it artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, digital assistance, that's probably the biggest disruptor of all of them. And if we take advantage of it, it'll be the biggest business benefit that anybody has ever seen.
I really like the phrase that a disruptor is only a bad thing if you didn't see it coming. I think a lot of businesses and business leaders can really relate to that as well.
Thank you.
I guess that brings about the question of challenges as well. So there are a lot of technological challenges that are ahead of us if we want to make progress. So can you tell us about what kinds of challenges are the biggest ones that are affecting our interaction with space?
Yes, I want to talk about space, but also about the enterprises that are out there, because there are many of us. One of the key challenges, it's going to sound very simple, but it's not, is to be able to take advantage of consumer technologies in the enterprise. Because we all have legacy. We have a lot of things that we're used to using, call it classic apps. Now you want to bring in the new way of doing things. And it doesn't necessarily mesh easily with the way we've always done things. So changing how we work is one of the biggest opportunities and the biggest challenge for any enterprise. Now, what does that mean to space? Everything. Because the people who put spacecraft in space, they're not the Martians. They are people on Earth that want to use the latest technologies and the latest tools. And the faster we can get them have access to all that data from the devices they're comfortable working, including tying in artificial intelligence, digital assistants, and things like that, then they can put better spacecraft on the surface of Mars and Europa and other planets quicker. So it all comes back to changing how we work. And we like to call ourselves, we're Jet Propulsion Laboratory, an 80-year-old startup, because it's a very entrepreneurial place. And so being able to take all that energy and harness it and steer it in a way where people can use the tools they want to do that wonderful work that they do. That's the challenge and the opportunity, not just for us and for NASA, but for every enterprise out there.
Do you think that all businesses should think like a startup to some extent?
Yes, absolutely. And, so the comeback is, well, startups go out of business. Of course they do. So what does that mean for us? It means that every startup is a life and death experiment in a technology. So if you look at all of that together, it's like a petri dish of innovation that we can take advantage of. And we actually mentor many startups and work with them and learn from them. Of course, realizing that there's a risk because it's not proven, but there's a risk to every enterprise out there.
And finally, what makes you most optimistic about the future? What are you most excited about?
I am extremely optimistic about the next generation of explorers, in our case. The new generation coming in are very IT savvy. They are used to using the latest technologies. They expect to see them and use them and be able to take advantage of them. And it's anything from the apps to the cloud, etc. And it's the impatience of needing to do something as quickly as possible. And I think that's the power. The speed is changing. Agile development, cloud computing, the partnering that goes on between government and commercial. In the space business here in the US, that's a very positive thing. And all the startups that are coming up in space and outside. So when you combine all of the new disruptors that we talked about earlier and apply them into our mission, we're going to, when I grew up, I looked into space and I saw something yellow out there. Then I watched TV and I saw people landing on that yellow thing, the moon. And the amazing thing was that they could do it. It was just incredible. Now the next generation coming up are not even asking if they can do it. They're assuming they can. And they're asking, how will we be able to, what will we find? I think that just that change in attitude will drive us much, much farther and faster. And we're going to be able to ask the big questions and actually get answers. Is there life out there? Can we send people to Mars? Is there an Earth 2.0? Can we redirect an asteroid? Can we predict floods, droughts, and all of that? I think the answer is going to be answered in my lifetime, which I never thought was possible before. So I'm extremely optimistic about the new technologies and the people who will drive those new technologies.
I definitely think there's a lot that we can be optimistic about. Thank you so much for talking to Future Crunch, Tom. It was it was a pleasure to meet you, and you've got some really, really interesting insights. So I think people at the Gamechangers Summit will be very excited to hear what you have to say.
I am looking forward to meeting and talking with them and learning from them. I think the key is we all learn from each other. We all have different domains that we learn from. And I look forward to seeing you there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Bye-bye.